Once upon a time, a wicked ruler was terrified of a child. And so this wicked ruler decided to have the child imprisoned, or exiled, or maybe just eliminated. Even though this wicked ruler had immense power, they were most terrified of the most powerless in their society. Now, I could be telling the story of Snow White, or Perseus, or some other character. But the fact is, we tell these stories because myths usually have an element of truth to them. We tell stories of wicked rulers who are afraid of children because it's true. Children represent the future, and tyrants are always terrified of the future. And that's where we are today in the story of Exodus. Hi, I'm Dave Barnhart, and I'm one of those preachers your preacher probably warned you about. Wicked rulers who fear children are part of both myth and history. We don't know for certain that King Richard of England had his nephews murdered, but it fits his character. And some historians doubt whether King Herod actually had infants in Bethlehem killed, but it does fit his character. In the book of Exodus, Pharaoh is a racist and insecure leader who's trying to keep the immigrants in check. He fears their growing population, and so he decides to attack their children. He tries to recruit midwives to kill infant boys. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, "When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him, but if it is a girl, let her live." But Shiphrah and Puah, the midwives, decide to use nonviolent resistance. They simply don't comply with Pharaoh's order. I'm going to talk more about them in the next video. But when his first strategy fails, Pharaoh calls on his own people to do his dirty work. Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. So why does Pharaoh target baby boys? Why not target boys and girls? Well, this isn't just about population growth. It's also about power. See, Pharaoh knows that if he takes out a generation of males, then the surviving females will have fewer options for how they build families. Pharaoh knows that they all live in a patriarchal society. With fewer Israelite men around, the women's economic, social, and political power will be reduced. At best, the women will have to intermarry and assimilate. So killing baby boys is a way to shape the world the women will grow up in. The surviving women will have fewer reproductive options. The author of Exodus is pointing out what we today call intersectional oppression. It means there may be many people in an oppressed group, but the oppression affects different ones of them in different ways. By attacking baby boys, Pharaoh is also affecting the way those baby girls will be able to create families. This strategy is still at work today. A recent report found that for every 100 black women who are not in jail, there are only 83 black men. And the place where there is the largest woman-to-man discrepancy? Ferguson, Missouri, where nearly half of young black men are missing, either incarcerated or dead. Our country puts more people in prison than any other country on the planet, and it disproportionately affects black and brown folks. Now, there are a lot of white people in prison too, but again, you have to look at the effect that it has on black and brown communities. We have what many call a school-to-prison pipeline. Our mass media often portrays black and brown boys as dangerous, even though they are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. In 1989, Donald Trump called for the execution of 5 teenagers who were accused of a brutal rape. They were later proven innocent, but that didn't seem to matter to him. Throughout history, the children of oppressed groups become targets precisely because they represent the future. Children represent hope, and you can kill the hope of a community by targeting children. Wicked leaders often target children because they are trying to reduce the economic, social, and political power of a community. Racists call them anchor babies. They call them vermin, and they claim they reproduce too fast. They claim that children of oppressed groups are parasites or liabilities, and they claim that their mothers, who have the hardest job in the world, are lazy or worthless. So attacking children and families is a frequent strategy of wicked rulers and oppressive ruling classes. And it's why the God of the Bible talks again and again and again about protecting the rights of widows, orphans, and aliens. There are dozens of passages in the Bible that lump these groups together, like this one. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. It's ironic that the richest and most powerful people in the world are often the most afraid of the weakest and most helpless. And it takes people like heroic midwives to see that there are no political boundaries between your children and my children. And if we're going to create a better world for all of our children, we have to recognize that your children are my children, and my children are yours. I also think the author of Exodus is showing us that Pharaoh is thinking 20 or 30 years ahead. He's planning a whole generation out. Because wicked leaders and oppressive rulers are often strategizing. They're thinking about how they can implement their vision of society generations ahead. And so it's a challenge to the rest of us, right? I mean, those of us who are working for love and justice, how are we thinking ahead? What kind of future are we imagining for our children and great-grandchildren? We can't just be responding to whatever new evil our wicked leaders come up with. So we need to be planning and thinking about how to build power to create a world based on love.